Hello everyone, how are you going? And welcome back to some more Historica Canada videos, the same people that make the Heritage Minutes and so many other incredible snippets, and so we're starting off with Operation Soap.
I know that something got into people because it got into me. What got into me was my own anger over living in a society which finds my existence inconvenient. What got into me was my own anger over harassment on streets that are never safe for me.
The night before the protests, 200 plainclothes police officers raided 4 gay bathhouses in what they called Operation Soap.
One of the cops said, looking at all the showers and the pipes going into the shower room, he said, gee, it's too bad we can't hook this up to gas.
They behaved like the worst kind of animal I've ever seen. I'll never forget it. I'll never forgive it.
The police charged a total of 306 men that night. Community activists were fed up. After years of fighting for their rights, they seized this moment.
They think that when they pick on us that they're picking on the weakest. Well, they made a mistake this time. We're going to show them just how strong we are.
What on earth am I doing this for, I asked myself. I haven't marched since the end of World War II. I know homosexuality is something you do in the dark, but I hadn't expected myself to be marching in the middle of Yonge Street in the middle of the night with about 2,000 others.
2,000?
The raids were a breaking point for queer communities in Toronto. Their calls for reform, for rights, ignored each time the police bashed in another door. Their shouts of protest were heard at the first official Pride celebration held in June. The raids didn't stop. They continued for almost 2 decades, but the community kept up the fight.
Wow. From 1981. Wow. What an absolutely incredible turnaround, going from 1981 to 10 years later, the City of Toronto endorsing the entire celebration of Pride and everything that comes along with that, as well as just, I can only imagine, hopefully just stopping doing raids and just bashing down doors and so many of those things, like arresting 300 people in one night. Like, that is outrageous.
As scattered individuals, we could do nothing.
Recent.
But once we start coming together, once we start forming and conceiving ourselves as a community, then we have strength.
It's crazy. And it is amazing how when this quote-unquote fractured community just stepped out of the shadows because they were just in them for self-preservation purposes, but when they just band together in the thousands. Like I said, I haven't marched since World War II, but I'm out here in my thousands. You might have arrested 300 last night, but I'm here with everyone else. And so then coming back to the visuals portrayed, it does leave me with a few questions because, well, I guess first of all, they said that plainclothes police were involved in the operation, but then the animation style shows them in uniform, and so I don't know, after the plainclothes police, do they get mixed in, or is it just a little bit of a drawing mistake? No idea. I mean, they're clearly showing the entire thing is just getting ripped apart. The search warrant, lack thereof probably, but the search of this place is just outrageous. I mean, you just got people just living their life. Like, you don't have to search high and low. Oh, and what? It had been over a decade since it had been removed from criminal law? That doesn't make any sense to me. I would have thought that, okay, given the fact or the events that are taking place, it still would have been around that time, but it was 69, and then we're talking about the 80s. So that just adds to what I was saying about how insane it is that 10 years later, the City of Toronto endorsed Pride. You're going from criminal law to incarcerating people to then just endorsing it. Like, that's a major, major leap, and so it would have taken so much effort, but my goodness, when you have them in the thousands like this, you can't ignore it. And so look, even though these days it is still far from being a polished off issue, at the same time, at least we can just grab the context from this video clip and just go, wow, it actually has progressed a long way. But anyway, now moving on to the black community that was bulldozed by the city of Halifax.
Where the pavement ended, Africville began. There have been black people in Halifax as long as there's been a Halifax. They helped build the city, formerly enslaved people and free black men and women, Maroons. Together, they dug out its roads and raised its roof beams. Facing racism in town, black people settled at the city limits. They built homes and started families. They set up their own school and other services the city refused to provide. They built the Seaview United Baptist Church, the beating heart of the community. Despite paying city taxes, Africvillians had no running water, electricity, paved roads, or sewers. Instead, the city built factories, sewage pits, and a prison nearby. then labeled the village a slum.
What?
In 1962, Halifax City Council voted to demolish Africville, taking its valuable land for industrial development. The bulldozers arrived as Africville lay sleeping. By 1970, the neighborhood was destroyed, and its residents forcibly relocated to other Halifax neighborhoods. But Africville was home to the people who lived there, and they would not be forgotten.
What? Rebuilt the church, okay.
Once a year, we venture out to Africville for a reunion. Set up your tent, set up your camp, or throw a blanket on the grass. The children are playing, people are laughing and hugging, reminiscing about the old days.
Wow.
But for 3 days, you have your community back.
Oh, man, that was an insane story. I mean, I read the title and I knew what it said, but the fact that they turned up in the middle of the night, like, were they kicking people out or were they just not caring at all? That's what I'm really quite worried about in this entire situation. I mean, I guess to be honest, it certainly wasn't the only surprising thing in this entire thing, the fact that they built their entire town, but then, yeah, like what was on with this? The fact that they were paying their own land taxes and all the city taxes, but then we're getting nothing back. No electricity, no running water. Police boil this water before drinking and cooking. I mean, fair enough. I mean, I don't know the kind of water quality that was at the time, but for goodness sake, the fact that they then basically just built the prison that they probably paid for in the first place and then put them in it with high incarceration rates. But there it is, this little slither of a park is all that is left of this entire area. I can only imagine they probably had everything we can see there from what the entire Historic of Canada video was showing. And really, the entire thing just makes no sense. It almost feels like a targeted attack because it was the 60s. They are hardly confined to the 1980s kind of technology where they can't go more than 5 meters from the water, you know? Even the fact that the CBD is apparently down at Halifax here with a historical site and everything, like, it's not that close to everything else they need. And instead, of course, just coming down here to where you also have water, I mean, it would be a shame to clear it, but in the 60s, it wouldn't have been really a thing. No, they just had to go up to there and just wipe out a community instead. There we go. That's a little bit less busy, but look at that. It is 4.5 kilometers. Let me just check that in comparison to Sydney and see how far out that would really be. Wow, it's just down there. It's not even Bondi away, for goodness sake. Like, really, there are so many possible areas that you could have fit within this radius. It's just like, you had to go and demolish an entire community just because you wanted to, really. And honestly, if you had just shown me this video without telling me what year it was and without all the pop-ups just saying it, and maybe without the modern bulldozers, but if you had just gone, this video or this entire story is about the 1890s, it would have gone, yep, contextually that makes sense. But this was the almost 70s. That is so recent. It's insane that this was even a thing. Like, of course, there would have been no community consultation. They just came in the middle of the night and wiped it out. It's that simple, really. And so I guess one of the most tragic things about this entire story is just the recirculative nature of it. You know, it certainly isn't the first and or last time we hear about something like this happening. And, you know, you just rip someone away from their homeland, rip someone away from their culture, and that's completely fine. You just rip them overseas, and that's completely fine. You just force them into forced labor and abuse them, and that's completely fine as well. And then on top of all of that, then you just let them build a little bit of culture, but then rip that away as well. Like, it's so evil to just keep people down like that. But anyway, now moving on to the Winnipeg General Strike.
People were unhappy. We had survived the Great War, and now we struggled to make ends meet. Workers in the building and metal trades demanded the right for collective bargaining and staged a series of strikes. Soon, the Winnipeg Trades and Labor Council called for a general strike. It started with the Hello Girls at the phone company. We also convinced the retail clerks, garment workers, waitresses, and others. Before lunch that day, 30,000 union and non-union workers walked off the job.
Whoa, that's a lot of people.
We set up a labor cafe. It served more than 1,200 meals daily. When the police came for me, I asked them, is this Canada the free? Canada the enlightened? And then, Bloody Saturday happened. Two dead, more than 30 people injured. The strike was ended before more bloodshed could occur. They said that the Winnipeg strike was lost, but it wasn't. It was a victory for the working classes, one that inspired us to continue the fight. I shall continue to work for more protection for our girls and women workers, and for the enforcement of all laws relative to wages and better working conditions.
Oh, man. Oh, I mean, it certainly hasn't been the most positive of videos, has it? But my goodness, the fact that I guess it just comes down to the sacrifice of those two people that lost their lives just to continue to drive this entire union forward. Oh man, it's just tragic but also amazing at the same time, because I guess it just allows people to get true perspective about what is actually going on here. Like, people are just trying to work, just trying to live a little bit more, just trying to get a little bit more money, and people are dying over it. Like, it doesn't even add up in any universe. And look, obviously, considering the time period, there was a lot of things going on, and so when she says people weren't happy, I'm sure there was just many compounding factors that has gone into that. But when you have 30,000 people in 1919 walking off the job, that's an insane percentage compared to anything that we really have today, especially over multiple sectors and multiple faculties. Like, you had retail, hospitality, so many different things just going, no, we can't be doing this anymore. Oh, and I just absolutely love that sign. It is just such a powerful message, and honestly, I would not be surprised if it is just based off a real sign that someone made at the time. And I mean, it is Historica Canada, and so they like to be just injecting pieces of history wherever they can, but prison bars cannot confine ideas. What a powerful message. You just cannot lock us up. You cannot stop this entire train from running on its track. Yes, look at that. It must be a real thing. Let me just go to images so I can get a bigger version. Oh my goodness, that is the perfect sign. Like I said, they just love to include history like that wherever they can, and it's so well implemented. Prison bars cannot confine ideas, walking in the thousands. And so I guess once again, like the first video, we're just truly showing the power of people en masse. When you have thousands of people like this just walking off the job or just campaigning for whatever it may be, you cannot ignore someone like that, and especially sustained. No way. Things have to be forced to change, and it's still the same concept today. People still march and protest and do whatever they need to do to this day. And look, not everybody is going to agree with whatever the message of the campaign may be about, but at least when you're having that open dialogue, you can just flesh the entire situation out and go, okay, this is my goals, this is my realistic goals, and it's just what can we do now for the better. And so honestly, it's just kind of like a relationship. You have to have effective communication to be able to move forward, and this is effective communication in action. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm just finally going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the algorithmic things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, then make sure to go check out my other ones. Also, make sure to go check out the original videos down in the description below, or hey, maybe you even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.